Hey everybody, Chris Peters here with another edition of 2023 NHL Draft Scouting Reports, and today we're going to talk about one of the most unique defensemen of the 2023 class, and that's Tanner Molendyk of the Saskatoon Blades in the WHL. Now there's a lot to like about Molendyk, especially his skating ability, which is one of the things that really separates him from the pack. He came in at number 27 on the FloHockey Top 100 NHL Draft Rankings, which you can read exclusively on FloHockey.tv. And because he's in the first round conversation, there's a lot of different debate that we're going to have, because this draft class, we've talked about the fact that the defensemen, it's not a very deep class of defensemen, but I think there is a wide variety of players and a lot of players that have a certain amount of upside. And when you have a player like Molendyk, who comes in at 5'11", 180 plus pounds, he's a little bit below NHL average size for a defenseman. If you look at the playoffs this year, there were about 13 players that were 5'11" or shorter that played on a blue line on a playoff team this season. So when you put it into that context, it makes you understand a little bit more that there aren't a ton of spots for these kinds of players, at least at that size. However, because Molendyk is an elite skater, it really does allow him to separate himself from other players at his size. It's something that separates Cale Makar, and that's the kind of thing that if you have that foundation of skating, perhaps there's more that can be built off of that. Now, the thing that I find really fascinating about Molendyk in that skating ability is how well he's able to get out of his own zone, his ability to escape pressure, his ability to change direction quickly, how good he is from a standstill. He's got good straight line speed and good edge work. So his mobility is outstanding, and that's a big thing that will help him as he continues to progress through the ranks. The question that I think I have and that other scouts have is, does that translate to producing at a higher level? So this season he had 37 points in 67 games with the Saskatoon Blades, had 8 points in the playoffs. Not a tremendous goal scorer, has a good enough shot, but he's not a guy that's going to beat goalies from deep very often. He's going to be a guy that can kind of sneak in a little bit more, get closer to the net, and create chances that way in terms of goals. His passing ability is fine. He's able to move pucks exceptionally well. I think his preference is to skate pucks out of trouble rather than use that passing ability. So sometimes you do wonder if the brain is catching up to the feet, because he is such a quick player. Does he process the game fast enough to maximize that skating ability? I think that's going to be a question that he's going to have to answer throughout his career. But because he has that foundation of skating, because he has that tremendous ability, having one elite or high-end trait that you can have to lean on is going to help carry you, because you can develop other elements of your game. So there's a little bit of a hockey sense question, not because I don't think he makes mistakes. I don't think he's a guy that's particularly risky. He just does the things that he does so well. You can maximize a bit more just with a little bit more crisper decisions with the puck on your stick and making a few plays that way. So I do think that he can benefit himself that way. Defensively, I don't have many concerns. I think when you have mobility like that, you're able to get in front of players, you're able to defend the rush well enough. He's able to turn pucks into dangerous chances going the other way. He's a very good transitional asset that way. So there are a lot of things to like in that regard. But as I mentioned, when we're talking about defensemen that are 5'11" or shorter, and again, 5'11", it doesn't sound that big of a difference, but they're just, when you look at the playoff numbers and you see how few there actually were this season, and the fact that guys like Cale Makar and Adam Fox are among the few, and Quinn Hughes to a certain extent as well, and those are the players that we kind of talk about. It takes a pretty special player to be a top 4 defenseman and be relied upon in the minutes that you would expect to draft a first-round defenseman in. And so that's why we'll see what happens exactly with Molendyk. I think the player has so many tools that I'm going to bet on that skating ability, and that's one of the things that I think a lot of NHL teams are going to have to decide as they make that decision. Molendyk is not a lock to go in the first round, but I think because of the premium that's going to be put on defensemen, the fact that there aren't a ton of guys that are really good first-round options, he's going to have a chance to get in there. And I think a team that has more opportunities to work with him, to maximize the ability for him to process the game quicker as he moves up the ranks, adjusting to the pro pace, adjusting to things. I think he's a bit of a longer-term project. But because he has those tools, there's a lot of teams that would be desperate to work with a player like that and try to expand on those capabilities. So I think Tanner Molendyk, even though we don't always talk about players that are below average in size for their position having higher ceilings, I think because of his skating ability and the different things that he's able to do on the ice, there's a lot of teams that will say, hey, there's a lot of potential here, and that there's a bit of a ceiling on him, that if we can do a little bit more developmentally, we're going to pull a lot more out of him. And that is an exciting prospect to work with. There's risk there. There's certainly, it's not no guarantee that you've got yourself an NHL player, but I think that, why I put him at number 27, why I think that he could be a first-round pick is because there are a lot of tools to work with, and I'm really excited to see what a team does with a player that can skate like Molendyk. That's going to do it for today's scouting report. Stay tuned for many more, and make sure you are subscribed to FloHockey's YouTube page, and check us out on FloHockey.tv for much, much more 2023 NHL Draft content. We'll see you next time.